Thank you. Good morning, everybody. Good morning. So yes, I'm an academic who writes fiction, and I put a lot of my own personal experiences into it. So I want to thank Dr. Watson and thank Julie for first reading the excerpts before they went into my books and approving them, and for giving me the opportunity to come and read this before you, my people, your class folks. So, my books are, I have a trilogy called the Metaphysical Love Stories, and the first two come from the perspective of Aisha. So that's who will be speaking to you this morning. My natural inclination and spiritual upbringing in the New Thought tradition became weaved into the fabric of who I was as a nurse and individual, and I sought to meet the spiritual, emotional, and physical needs of my patients and their families. I prayed over the babies and thanked God when they made progress without shame or hesitation. I thanked Jesus openly but quietly when I was able to start IVs into veins that were smaller than the catheters we inserted, and offered to pray for families of babies who were struggling. My spiritual approach to care was noticed and emulated by others, and somehow was brought to the attention of the nursing director of the NICU. I was nervous when she asked me to meet with her in her office. The defense I prepared was unnecessary. Instead of rebuking me, she extended an invitation to pay for my training to become a Caritas coach and heart math trainer. I want you to represent the NICU on the hospital spiritual care team. We'll pay for your training, travel, and meetings, but part of your role will be that it will require you to teach classes, sharing what you've learned in the trainings. Are you interested? Yes, I am. This is Dr. Jean Watson's Caritas Coach program, right? It is. I'm not surprised that you're familiar with her work. She's the nursing theorist we chose for our hospital. I love her. I wrote my senior thesis on her caring science work. You are absolutely beaming, Aisha. I'm happy you're excited about this opportunity. Your colleagues were right to recommend you for this position. Congratulations. It was an honor and a privilege to train with Dr. Watson, a nurse and metaphysician after my own heart. She was so filled with the presence of the Holy Spirit that light seemed to radiate from her. I tried not to behave like a groupie in her presence, but along with our entire cohort, we were clearly smitten. The 6 months of training in the Caritas program and subsequent heart math training flew by, after which I became the NICU representative on the hospital spiritual care team. Our team consisted of hospital chaplains and care providers from other disciplines, including respiratory therapy, medical imaging, and physical therapy. We bonded over discussing principles of loving and caring for ourselves first, then extending love and care to our patients, their loved ones, throughout the hospital and out into the world. Some people jokingly referred to us as the Love Club. We didn't care. We even laughed and referred to ourselves as such. We reveled in the conviction that ours was not only a profession, but a spiritual calling and ministry. Some of the people who laughed behind our backs sought us out when they needed an encouraging word, comfort, or simply a hug. One of the ridiculers, a rough, tough, gruff nurse wearing faded, baggy blue scrubs, followed me into the break room one day. The scrunchie holding on to her gray hair, hand brushed into a low, sloppy ponytail, threatened to fall off again as she approached me. Only the two of us were present. I need a hug, she croaked. I smiled and gathered her in my long arms. I held her tightly, swaying slowly from side to side. Her plump body slumped against me as she rested her head on her shoulder. She cried softly for literally a minute, her breath shaking as she wept. Then just as abruptly as she made her request for the hug, she stood straight, dried her eyes, swiped at the tears wetting the gray whiskers on her chin, and gave me a rough pat on the same shoulder she just cried on. Thanks, kid. Don't tell anybody. I won't, I promise, because I knelt to pick up the scrunchie that had given up and fallen to the floor. She turned and stood still as I smoothed her surprisingly soft hair back and secured the ponytail tighter and higher. Tears filled her eyes again as she winked at me and left without saying another word. That was from my first book, and this is a little excerpt from the second one where Aisha is now a seasoned Caritas coach in Heart Math, and this is about one of their meetings. Chaplain Timothy opened the meeting with a non-denominational prayer, which was followed by a heart-focused coherence exercise led by Chaplain Paul. Elated to be together in person again, we dove right in to catch up. Each member of the Caritas committee provided an update on how they were doing and what their experience was for having gone through the COVID-19 pandemic. Several spoke about how it felt to not be able to physically connect with each other during that time and how our lives had changed because of it. Some cried, others laughed, and some didn't even want to think or talk about it because it was either too painful or they were simply sick of talking about it. Then Thomas said, I practiced Dr. Watson's 7 sacred sutras to not only to get through it, to emerge from it better. Perfect segue, my brother. Timothy turned to us and said, we are fortunate today to have Thomas with us to share a video and facilitate a discussion afterward on Dr. James Watson's 7 sacred sutras. Let me show you. Thomas stepped to the podium and displayed Dr. Watson's presentation on the conference room's mega video screen. We listened, captivated, as she spoke of the sacred work we engaged in as caring science and therefore sacred science. She explained that sutras were simple truths that pointed towards something greater in ourselves and led us closer to our source. Those and other inspirational statements filled us with a sense of hope and expectancy by the time we finished the short video. Thomas returned to the front of the room. That was great, right? I've been practicing Dr. Watson's 7 sacred sutras for the past year. He recited them by memory as he wrote them on a chart pad. Stillness, silence, solitude, spirit, simplicity, sacred service, and surrender. He tapped the words with the closed dry erase pen for emphasis as he continued. I meditated, prayed on, and practiced those sutras for hours. Thank you. He had everyone's full attention. Going in and shutting the door, spending time within with God or Source. I had the most profound revelation. He paused as if he was going to change his mind about what he planned to say. Like Dr. Watson said, those sutras take us to a deeper spiritual level that connect us to our Holy Spirit like you wouldn't believe. Thomas looked around the room and appreciated how enthralled we obviously were. He blushed crimson and dropped a little of his composure when he said, the more I went within, God kept showing me love. I know, God is love, so how could it be otherwise? But God showed me that agape love, that eros, that oneness, that Jehovah Adonai. And I followed God's lead right back here. Y'all know I've been coming out here with the nursing registry to work a few months here and there over the years. Those who've been around while nodded in agreement. He continued, but let me tell you about my God. He stopped and shook his head side to side while squeezing his eyes shut to keep them from filling with tears. After taking a deep inhale, Thomas exhaled and said, God did not show me Lucy until after he'd taken me to a level of love and oneness with him that was deeper than I'd ever known. Then he brought me back here to present myself to her and to ask her if she'd like to join me and God on a journey of pure love. We all turned to look at Lucy. Those who didn't already know who she was could tell by the way Thomas was looking at her. The crimson red of Lucy's olive-toned cheeks matched Thomas's. Her eyes filled with tears, but she made no attempt to stifle them. She turned to face us and said, I told him yes. I told him I'd love to accompany him and God on a journey of pure love. Wait, did he ask her to go out on the road with him or one of his mission journeys? Or is he talking about a journey of love as in marriage? Ayala asked. Also confused, I asked aloud, so are you getting married or are you going on a mission trip? Others laughed and admitted that they were also confused about the journey of pure love Thomas and Lucy had agreed to go on. Both, they said simultaneously through smiles.
Aww, beautiful.
Thank you.
Oh.